Hello everyone, Brett the Comic Novice here, and May 2024 brings a very special and important anniversary for myself, that being the 5-year mark of me reading and collecting comics. Now, this might not seem like a big deal, but it actually for me is a huge deal. As that point in my life in 2019, my life was spiraling out of control. I struggled to find joy in most anything, and I was desperately trying to grasp on to some hobby. And I found that through the comic book community, not just reading comics, not just collecting comics, but being a part of the comic YouTube community and also listening to some comic podcasts. That is why I have created my podcast or my YouTube channel, because I just enjoy being a part of the community. I'd love to hear anybody's thoughts on that. Like, subscribe, comment down below. I'd love to hear it. This is my 5-year anniversary of collecting comics, but this video is primarily focused on the DC comics because that was only what I was reading in 2019, as it was the only kind of comic range that actually I found interest in. I enjoyed the heroes of, and the stories for the most part I kind of liked. However, retrospectively, I will tell you, I think that there is some issues. And because of that, I have a lot of what I would say what I've learned from this hobby, especially because just previously I have sold over 900 of my comic books and have not received the cover price that I paid for in return. So with that, I'm going to go over my 5 years of collecting DC Comics, what I've learned, and what I'm looking to do in the future regarding, I guess you could say, this hobby. So with that being said, I'm going to first, thank Brian Michael Bendis for his event Leviathan, because I will tell you, this Mark Shaw, I think that's what his name is. No, that's the villain from Doctor Who. Anyway, Shaw, whatever his name was, the reveal of who he was in the event Leviathan, and it was supposed to be something big and something that was going to change the entirety of the world. And when it came to me having no clue who he was or the importance of him in the DC universe, I really started, trying to peel back the layers and joined in on a lot of conversations on YouTube's, on live streams and whatnot, trying to make sense of this supposedly huge deal. And it is such the non-huge deal that none of the things that have occurred in Event Leviathan have really played a role. I know Bendis took over the Justice League book, which I stopped reading because it was unreadable. And then he had the Event Leviathan Checkmate series, which I started reading until I stopped. But I do owe that book a huge thanks, because without that, I would have not have found so many YouTube channels, been a part of a couple of communities that I feel kind of, I'm on the outside, but I feel as though I'm still part of it. So I do appreciate that. The other thing that I really started collecting was the Year of the Villain, because I was looking for something that, again, I just needed something that I was looking to look forward to. And there are so many things at Year of the Villain that they had on the cover of every single comic that was coming out at the time. And so I just picked up every single one of them and was trying to follow along with the story. Some of it made sense. Some of it did not make sense. The Justice League stories were the strongest ones. All the other ones, I think were near redundant or did not really kind of mesh well with the main storyline. You had, the City of Bane that I think was going on at the same time, possibly even the Joker War, I think, if memory serves me right. There was a lot of things that were going on. Year of the Villain led to the Dark Knight's death metal, which was supposed to be, at least from what people were saying, it was a DC event. And I was kind of excited because I'd heard of so many great things regarding, Crisis on Infinite Earths. You had the Infinity Crisis. What is that? Is that right? Did I get that right? Infinite Crisis, and then Final Crisis that I have an omnibus form. But again, I was excited to be a part of this Crisis, even though it was kind of then said it's not. There's so many tie-ins. And I picked up every single Year of the Villain one shot. I picked up every single Dark Knight's Death Metal one shot, and also the main story. And here is where I really started to question everything. So much so that was kind of looking to the next crisis and wondering or the next event, and trying to figure out what I wanted to do regarding that. Then you had what was it? The Future State storyline, which was basically DC taking 2 months off trying to revamp the 5G initiative that failed before it even launched because Dan DiDio, who was in charge of 5G, decided to, or got removal from work, with a box of his stuff. So that was kind of canceled, but probably Future State was a possible look at what was going to happen. And I feel as though the Dark Detective with Mariko Tamaki doing the Bruce Wayne Batman was very strong. And I think that's about it. I really did not like most of the stories. And again, they took off an entire month of new comic books to set up the Infinite Frontier. Infinite Frontier, you had so many versions of every single character, except for Darkseid. There was only supposed to be one Darkseid, and I thought that was setting up something huge, and it never did. It just, from that point forward, you spun into the Batman Fear State event that at this point in time, I was collecting all of the tie-in books and, well, the Batman book, the Nightwing book, and whatnot. And then you had the one-shots. And because of what I went through with not just Future State, because that was not an event, just kind of a pause, but what you had from Dark Knight's Death Metal as well as Year of the Villain, and me going 100% in on it, I decided to kind of pull out and only pick up a few of the tie-ins, and just to see if anything made sense. And because it made sense without reading some of the tie-ins, I kind of thought about this really, really strongly. Then we moved to Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths, at which point in time I decided to step out of every single main storyline with the exception of the main book, just to see if it made sense. And as I did so, I noticed that some of these event stories, the tie-ins, the one-shots or whatever, are almost kind of meaningless to some extent. You had the Trial of the Amazons, the Shadow War, the Batman story with Deathstroke that occurred, and I was, collecting Deathstroke and Batman. But then you had the the Shadow War Alpha and Omega. You had the Trial of the Amazons, which was a non-event. I never lost interest faster in anything ever. And I was hopeful that, there'd be a good Wonder Woman event, but there just wasn't. Shadow War, I just got annoyed with the Alpha and the Omega issues. Either that, or they just should have done what they did with Beast World, and that is just do the main story. And then you could do the tie-ins in other issues of, Superman, Batman, whatever. But I just decided that that's when I really started questioning everything. Eventually we got the Night Terrors, and I sat out every single book that wasn't the main Night Terror story. And I paused my collection for, I got the Green Lantern one because I was collecting that, and I thought the covers were cool. I also got the Nightwing only because the covers were cool, had no intention of reading the story whatsoever. Then I started thinking, why am I buying these covers just because they're cool? That's kind of almost a waste. So then we had the Gotham War that spun out of, I forgot the Lazarus Planet. The Lazarus Planet, I read the issue number 1, and I read the Omega issue. I can't remember if it was an Alpha and Omega issue, but I read only those, and I skipped all the ones in between. I have no idea what happened in any of those stories in between. And I feel as though I'm not at a loss for anything at all except for having saved so much money for these, $4.99, $5.99 comics. So again, now we go back to, Gotham War. And I had not been reading Catwoman, and it was a Catwoman Batman's story tie-in. And I just decided to sit out everything, and then I bought only I think there was an Omega issue, and I just bought that and just went off of what I remember hearing from Comic YouTube and comics podcasts, and that filled me in, and I felt as though again I was winning because I feel as though I got the story that I wanted in the final issue of the Gotham War, and I didn't have to, spend a whole bunch of money. And then from that point forward, with the Beast World, I was about ready to just pause out of the entirety of the whole thing. I only picked up issue number 1 of Beast World because of the art germ cover for issue number 1. I read issue number 1 and I was like, okay, maybe this could be a really good series, but I'm not sure what I want to do. And so, I didn't buy or didn't read any of the tie-ins to, Nightwing or Titans, or I don't remember what else they had in. I think they had a bunch of one-shots. Didn't read any of those at all. And it's just brought, this 5-year, pioneerage or whatever, this adventure in reading comic books. I went from a novice picking up every single thing, picking up every single title, trying to see if everything tied in together, which stories were great, which heroes I like to read. And I was able to purge some of those from, my hobby, because it was just like, okay, don't like that hero, don't like those storylines, don't like those writers or whatever. Now I've just pulled back immensely. I am collecting Action Comics, Superman, the 2 main books for those. I'm collecting Batman Detective Comics because I feel as though there's always going to be some important reason for those. I'm collecting the Green Lantern books, and I think that's about it. I'm faced right now currently with the Absolute Power event that is about ready to happen after the House of Brainiac, and I'm about ready to just walk away from that event and just read it digitally on the DC Infinite Universe app and wait maybe for the trade, the paperback trade of that, if not maybe the deluxe hardcover. Because I'll tell you, one thing that I've noticed is if, having a subscription to the DC Infinite Universe app, if I'm not likely to read it there, what are the odds of me not reading it when I buy the issue in the store? And that was the other thing that I learned from selling my 900 issues of comics, is some of them I'd never read. I'd heard the synopsis of and the chatter about it through Comics YouTube and podcasts. And I found that I had just wasted money on something that was not good. Now, people have their own spin, and maybe, their spin was not the actual, spin that I should have, taken. But you know what? It's always a learning experience, and I appreciate that about comics YouTube and whatnot. But you know what? I found that if you find voices that you trust and that you believe in and aren't always, the sky is falling, revolving around comics or whatever, I feel as though you have a good grasp on what is going on. What I'm actually looking forward to is, behind me, I have a whole bunch of omnibuses. DC, again, like I said, rarely ever prints brand new omnibuses. Like, why have they not collected, it might be unpopular opinion, but why have they not collected the James Tynion Batman, Fear State stuff in all-in-one omnibus? They're in trade paperbacks, they're in hardcovers, but they're not in an oversized deluxe format. The only thing that they seem to keep doing is doing deluxe formats for Tom King's, maybe Black Label books, his mainline books or whatnot. So he's the one that gets these oversized covers, these deluxe editions, these omnibuses, but all the other stuff is stuff from of years ago. I'm looking forward to the part two of the Tomasi Gleason Green Lantern book. I'm looking forward to the Superman Triangle years omnibus, Volume 1. I'm going to be picking up those. I have scaled back so much of my brand new comics because I'm finding that the older stuff is more enjoyable. I'm looking forward to when DC has their version of these, epic collections. I can't remember what they're called, but I'm looking forward to picking up those ones because those are the, sadly, some of the modern comics, I'm not going to just generalize and say all of them are not good, but there's a majority of them that the stories are just such a slog to get through. And it is one issue after another after another. And, whereas these, done in the Bronze Age, I think the Bronze Age and part of the Silver Age is like don't think DC Silver Age is my 100% in on thing. I think it's DC Bronze Age and Marvel Silver and Bronze Age that I'm like looking at collecting. But I think that is where I'm going to be going. Is I'm going to be lightening my load for new comics. If I miss something, I'm going to basically pick it up through the DC Infinite Universe app, and then if I really like it, trade wait, because I've spent so much money and have gotten, I don't think my money's it back in return for entertainment and value and escapism. And I think that is where I'm struggling with modern comics, with DC, with Marvel, and you could even say with Image and stuff like that, but those are independent creator owned stuff. So again, that is my 5 year collecting journey, introspective of the hobby. What are your thoughts? What do you think, if anything, if I got anything wrong? What are your suggestions? Comment down below, like, subscribe, ring the bell if you'd like. I don't care. And until next time, I will see you in the dollar section where some of my previous comics are currently being sold. Thanks for watching. Bye. Hello, 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 everyone. Brett the